Hi, everybody. Today we're going to learn how to factor the difference of two squares. How to factor the difference of two squares. So let's remember, what is factoring? Factoring is taking an expression and rewriting it as a multiplication problem. Okay? Taking an expression and rewriting it as a multiplication problem. So to go backwards a little bit, remember when we were learning how to multiply polynomials and you had something like x minus 2 times x plus 2. I told you that this was the sum and the difference of the same two terms. The sum and the difference of the same two terms. What did we get for an answer when we multiplied this? All right, we got x times x was x squared plus 2x minus 2x and minus 4. The two middle terms go to 0 or cancel out, and you got x squared minus 4. All right, well, what is that? Look and see what that is. That is the difference, see the minus sign, of two squares. So this is the difference of two squares. So now in factoring, we work backwards. They're going to give you the difference of two squares, and you have to find out or determine what did they multiply to get that answer. So the difference of two squares factors into the sum and the difference of the same two terms. So it's like working backwards. So for example, if I have x squared minus 25, that's the difference of two squares. X is a perfect square. X squared, I should say. X quantity squared is x squared. What squared is 25? 5. So it is the difference of two perfect squares. That factors into the sum and the difference of the same two terms. And there are your terms for you, x and x, 5 and 5. Let's say you had a squared minus 16. So you ask yourself, what squared gave me a squared? A did. What squared gives me 16? 4. Difference of two squares factors into the sum and the difference of the same two terms. So A and A, 4, and 4. What if we had something like 4x squared minus 1? Okay. Well, what squared gives us 4? 2. What squared gives us x squared? X. What squared gives us 1? 1. 1 times 1. So, factors into the difference of two squares, the sum and the difference of the same two terms. So this times 2x and 2x and 1 and 1. You could have two variables. You could say x squared minus y squared is the difference of two squares. What squared gives me x squared? X times x. What squared gives me y squared? Y times y. So when you factor the difference of two squares, x squared minus y squared, the sum and the difference of the same two terms, x and x, y and y. Now let's see, what if we have 25x squared minus 16y squared? Well, what squared is 25? 5. What squared is x squared? X. What squared is 16? 4. What squared is y squared? Y. So there are your two terms. So the difference of two squares factors into the sum and the difference of the same two terms. 5x, 5x, 4y, 4y. Of course, you can multiply, you can FOIL and check your answer, and you'll see that the middle terms are always going to cancel out, the inner and the outer. Okay? Y squared plus 25. Well, what does it say? Factoring the difference of two squares. This is not the difference. This is the sum of two squares. And you cannot factor it because you would always get a middle term. So sum of two squares can't be factored unless there's a GCF. That's the only thing you could do, is take out a GCF if there was one. So what if we had take one out. 4x squared minus 16. Our first question that we ask ourselves when we factor is there a GCF? And there is a GCF here. The GCF is 4. So you're going to take that 4 out first. So 4, you write your original problem. You divide both by the GCF. And you have 4 times the quantity of x squared minus 4. Well, now you have to ask yourself, can I factor this anymore? Can I factor this anymore. Well, x squared minus 4 is the difference of two squares. So you bring down that 4, and then you factor it into the sum and the difference of the same two terms. That would be x times x and 2 times 2. I hope you would get this. Remember, you can look at the 9.7 study guide that I supplied you with to give you more examples. And you can also refer to the notes that are on Plus Portals if you need to.